Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. On this microfiche time capsule, we are looking back at the Relief Society magazine, December 1958. And this article is entitled Elder Alvin R. Dyer by Joseph T. Bentley, Superintendent, Young Men's Mutual Improvement Association. So usually I don't look at the Relief Society magazine, but occasionally it has some really great articles that aren't in other magazines. And typically the Improvement Era has more like complete articles, like longer ones. But the Relief Society magazine sometimes covers things that the others don't. So it is really helpful to have, but the articles tend to be shorter. So this is a semi-short article, and hopefully we'll get a decent amount of information, because I've been really looking forward to learning about Alvin R. Dyer. Alvin R. Dyer was one of the handful of people who served in the First Presidency who were not in the Quorum of the 12. So he served in the First Presidency, I believe, under David O. McKay. But other than that, I really don't know much about him, and I'm really interested in him, so I would like to know more. There's a picture. This is Alvin R. Dyer. I feel like he looks kind of personable, like somebody you could talk to. Like, that's just my first impression. Yeah, let me know what you think. Anyways, although you can't always tell, by looks, as we found out in the last article. One about, I believe it was Hubie Brown. I completely got it wrong, but it happens. Can't always be right. Anyway, so let's take a look at the article. Elder Alvin R. Dyer, Joseph T. Bentley, Superintendent, Young Men's Mutual Improvement Association. So, at the Saturday morning General Conference of the 128th Semi-Annual Conference held on October 11th, 1958, Elder Alvin R. Dyer was sustained as an assistant to the Council of the 12 Apostles. So he was an assistant to the 12. This great and important calling in the Church and Kingdom of God is the climax to a life of great devotion and service, for Elder Dyer has been actively devoted to sincere and effective service in the Church all his life. In fact, the one quality which characterizes his life, perhaps more than any other, is the zeal and enthusiasm with which he undertakes any job. Okay. Elder Dyer was born January 1st, 1904. Ooh, the first one born in the 20th century, huh? In Salt Lake City, a son of Alfred Robert and Harriet Walsh Dyer. His grandparents came to this country as converts and were faithful pioneers, having come to Utah in the early days. Interesting! Did they say what country from? He attended school in Salt Lake City and distinguished himself in baseball and other forms of athletics. In 1922, he was called on a mission to the eastern states, where he served for 2 years. He was married in the Salt Lake Temple, June 2nd, 1926, to May Elizabeth Jackson. The Dyers have 2 children, a daughter, Gloria May Klein, who lives in Salt Lake City, and a son, Brent Rulin Dyer, who is attending the Brigham Young University. They have 1 grandson, Mark R. Klein, who is a son of Mr. and Mrs. Reed Klein. Interesting that they only had 2 children. That's actually not super common. I feel like average is about 5, yeah? So that's kind of few compared to most of the general authorities. Elder Dyer has been active in church work all his life, serving as a Ward YMMIA superintendent, that's Young Men's Mutual Improvement Association, superintendent of the Ward Sunday School, and the High Council of 2 Stakes, as a member of several bishoprics, and then as bishop of the Monument Park Ward for 5 years. In 1954, he was called to preside over the Central States Mission, where he served until he called to the General Superintendency of the Young Men's Mutual Improvement Association in June 1958. Okay, wait. He was called to the Superintendency of the Young Men's Mutual Improvement Association June 1958, and then the following October he was called as an assistant to the 12. That's pretty fast, yeah? Did he serve in both capacities at the same time, or was he released from the Young Men's in order to serve as the assistant? It has indeed been a great pleasure to work with Elder Dyer these past few months and to feel his spirit and love. Oh, okay, so the author, yeah, who also is in the YMMIA, yeah? to feel a spirit and love for the fine young people of the church. His organizing ability and his penchant for wanting the facts in every situation have projected a program of analysis and study in the great MIA program that will be of great benefit to the MIA and the young people of the church. Well, that's really good. I mean, that's a good thing to say, like, I really feel strongly that, we need to know the facts of every situation. Okay, that's an analytical mind. Elder Dyer has been active in civic work as well as church work, having been a member of the Exchange Club, what is that, of Salt Lake City, and he is still a member of the Missouri Historical Society and the Jackson City Historical Society. Okay. Professionally, he is a self-made man, having studied professional work through correspondence courses and getting his education largely through his own efforts. What does that mean? Does that mean that his parents didn't put him through college, I guess? But, that's fairly common, I think. However, he has been successful in business and is a former member of the American Society of Heating and Ventilating Engineers and has been a consultant for the American Military Engineers. Okay, so he's an engineer. They didn't mention that until now. I was wondering what he did for a living. Okay, he was an engineer. Both Elder and Mrs. Dyer are able and enthusiastic and devoted members of the church, and because of his vast experience and ability, Elder Dyer will enthusiastically take up the work of his new calling with his usual devoted service to the church. And then there's another picture, and this one says Alvin R. Dyer and his family. Front row, left to right, Elder Alvin R. Dyer holding his grandson Mark Klein. May Jackson Dyer. In the center, Gloria Dyer Klein, daughter. Back row, standing left to right, Reed Klein, son-in-law, and Brent Dyer, son. Okay. Yeah, the daughter looks a lot like the mother. Not gonna lie. The son doesn't look that much like the father, though. It kind of looks like himself, That's interesting. Huh. 2 children. And then their daughter has 1 child, at least at that point. Yeah, who knows how many they had at the end. But yeah, that's all they say in the article. I feel like there were a lot of facts, and it was very brief and to the point. It was very short. It's a little bit unsatisfactory, It's a little bit dissatisfying. Is that a word? Unsatisfying. That's the word. Because I really like to know about people and what they are like. What is this person like? Unfortunately, all of his photos kind of look the same. I'm looking at 5 photos of him, and they all have the same expression, and they're all from the same angle. So that's a bit annoying, but that's okay. Once again, this Wikipedia article is pretty short as well. But I'm sure we will learn something from it that we didn't know before. But okay, what do we know so far? He was an engineer. Yeah, he likes facts before he makes a decision. He was called to the young men's presidency, I guess, superintendency, before he was called as assistant to the 12. And then afterwards he was called to the first presidency, yes? All right, let's take a look at the Wikipedia article. Alvin Rulon Dyer, January 1st, 1903. Oh, I just realized he's a New Year's baby. To March 6th, 1977. Was an apostle in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church, and served as a member of the church's first presidency from 1968 to 1970. Yeah. So, just briefly then. Born in Salt Lake City, Utah, Dyer was ordained an apostle on October 5th, 1967, but was not added as a member to the Quorum of the 12. That's right. He didn't serve in the quorum, and subsequently was set apart as a counselor in the first presidency to Church President David O. McKay. After McKay's death in 1970, Dyer was returned to a position as an assistant to the 12 apostles, and later to the first Quorum of the 70, when it was reconstituted in 1976. Yeah, they dissolved the calling of assistant to the 12 in 1976, in case you were not aware, but that is why there aren't any today. Dyer is the only person in the LDS Church's history to serve in the first Quorum of the 70 after having been ordained to the office of apostle. Yeah, well, that's because he served in the first presidency. Yeah, that's probably true. Okay, But I don't know that that's that interesting. It's just a coincidence, basically. Statistically interesting, I guess. Life. Raised in Utah, Dyer was an accomplished baseball player as a youth, but put baseball aside to serve as a missionary for the LDS Church in the Eastern States Mission from 1922 to 1924. In 1926, he married May Elizabeth Jackson in the Salt Lake Temple. Okay. They don't mention anything about their relationship. Nothing. It's a bit frustrating. After his mission, Dyer had the opportunity to play professional baseball. Well, really? But declined the offer because he would have to play on Sundays. Okay, so he was really good at baseball. I don't know, like, how I feel about this. Like, is that admirable or is that just foolish? What do you think? I'm sure we'll have, like, different opinions on both sides. So is that a good quality, or is that just him being foolish and giving up an opportunity? I don't know. What do you think? Just throwing it out there. Instead, he studied mechanical drafting and technical engineering in order to become a sheet metal journeyman. Journeyman, huh? He later managed the heating and air conditioning department of Utah Builders Supply. Eventually, he formed the Dyer Distributing Company, which he owned until 1954, when he dissolved all his business interests upon being called to full-time service as a mission president for the church. Oh yeah, in the Central States Mission, they say. In addition to his service as a general authority, Dyer served in many capacities within the church, including bishop and stake high counselor. He served as president of the church's Central States Mission, beginning in 1954, and of the European Mission from 1960 to 1962, which hadn't happened when the article was written, While leading the European Mission, Dyer was an enthusiastic supporter of Henry D. Moyle's baseball baptism program that accelerated the rate of baptisms among the young people. Oh gosh. He told the missionaries, "You can teach everything that a person needs to know to be baptized in this church in less than 3 minutes." Oh, really? We talked about this when I did a video on Henry D. Moyle about the baseball baptism program, because the idea was that they opened up sports teams in the church, which is fine, but that the sports teams would be open to anyone who wanted to join, with the contingency that they had to get baptized. So they had all these people that were baptized but didn't actually come to church ever. Like, I don't think that's a good thing, in my opinion. Like, you have a whole bunch of people in the church, but it's more on paper. It's kind of like having bots like your social media accounts, today. It's empty. It's very empty. And, so it's, I can understand why he was so supportive of baseball, because he was a baseball player, but I can't understand why he would support baseball baptism program, because they basically got people off the street to join their baseball team in order to get them baptized. I don't know, that I don't like that at all. That's the first negative thing we've heard so far, but we haven't really heard anything in either direction except that he was willing to work. Oh well, I guess that the whole "I gave up baseball because I didn't want to play on Sundays" thing. I don't know. What do you think? I feel like this is one of those things where it's controversial, but what is your opinion? Aside from his business and church activities, Dyer was active in both the Missouri Historical Society and the Jackson County Historical Society. He authored a book on LDS church history in Missouri, The Refiner's Fire: Historical Highlights of Missouri. So he was interested in church history. Relatable. Hello, from the future. I share your interest. In 1961, Dyer taught that the reason most Negroes were prohibited from being ordained to priesthood offices was because they were descended from Cain and thus were a cursed lineage. Church President Spencer W. Kimball announced the end of these restrictions in 1978. Oh gosh, okay, another controversy. Alvin R. Dyer, what the flip? I was really disposed to like you, and now I just, he probably got along with Henry D. Moyle pretty well, just saying. But like, and that's a page out of J. Reuben Clark's book, yeah? Like, he was the one who was very adamant about blacks not having the priesthood. He wasn't the only one, but still, obviously, because Alvin R. Dyer, you know? That's super frustrating. Just when we read Thorpe B. Isaacson being on the other side of this, last week, and then this week it's, oh gosh, that's terrible. And I hate that even in the flippin' Wikipedia article, they use the word Negroes. Like, come on, people. You can't say people of color. You can't, you can't be a little more PC. Come on. That's awful. You have to use, I'm sure that's the word he used. But in the 1960s, that was the correct word to use. That is no longer correct and is now considered a slur. And, well, not as bad of a slur as other things, but, like, it is not an acceptable term to use. And I really don't like that I even had to say it because I was reading this. Okay. In August 1967, McKay decided to appoint Dyer as one of his counselors. McKay made the decision without consulting his other counselors, Hugh B. Brown and N. Eldon Tanner. Really? The appointment caused some tension between Brown and Tanner and the newly called Dyer over what Dyer's role would be and whether his calling was as counselor to the First Presidency or in the First Presidency. Because he hadn't been in the Quorum of the 12, right? So this is what I'm understanding, is that one of them, I don't know which one was which, but one of them wanted him to be called a counselor to the First Presidency, implying kind of like assistant to the 12. You know, you're not in the 12, you're an assistant to the 12, so it would be a counselor to the First Presidency, meaning you're not in the First Presidency, you're counseling with the First Presidency, yeah? And the other one wanted it to say he was a counselor in the First Presidency, saying he was actually in the First Presidency making decisions on an equal playing field with them. The question was he on an equal playing field or not? Interesting that David O. McKay didn't consult his other counselors about it, but that would make him a third counselor, yes? If he already had Hugh B. Brown and N. Eldon Tanner as his counselors, so first and second, I'm assuming, and then he called Alvin R. Dyer as his third counselor. Oh gosh, like, I don't care about that as much. I don't think it's important. As far as like list of people in the First Presidency, he's on it. So I think that it was accepted that he was a counselor in the First Presidency. Whether or not the others preferred that term is kind of irrelevant, because he was in the First Presidency. And it is the prerogative of a president to call his counselors. All they can do is say yes or no, yeah? In 1972, Dyer suffered a stroke that limited his activity. He died at his home in Salt Lake City, Utah in 1977. Gosh, 5 years later. You can suffer a stroke that limits your activity that badly and then live another 5 years. That's always so, interesting to me. Well, I have to say he was way more controversial than I was expecting him to be. Turns out he's racist. Believed that all black people were descendants from Cain and had a cursed lineage. That's awful. Let's marginalize some more marginalized people. That's great. Gosh. Anyways, I know that was the belief at the time. I do know that. I did catch that a little bit when I was a child, still being talked about, because I was born in the 80s and it wasn't that long since this had happened. The 1978 release of restrictions, that it was brought forward as, something new And so some people were still adjusting to it. And some of the older books still said, people with black skin were like descendants of Cain. Anyway. But I just don't think it's acceptable of anyone to think about any other living human being. Like, I know a lot of people of color and not of color, and I can honestly say I do not think that there's any inherent superiority in any group of people. There are some minor genetic differences between races, where one is more prone to one thing and one is more prone to another, just genetically. But I don't think there's anything different in their characters. I really don't. Cultures, yes. Characters, no. But cultures can be different inside of races as well. So that's not racial either, It depends more on how you were raised than what you look like, The way you look is just so minor. It's such a minor part of who you are. And yet it makes such a huge flippin' difference in, like, the way you're treated. And that, I think, is absolutely unacceptable. That is my opinion. And I will stand by it. Because I think that if you honestly believe that people should be treated differently based on how they look, then you are a bigot. That's what I'm saying. And I think that Alvin R. Dyer saying things like this just proves that he was as well. Which is unfortunate. And so, I don't know. I have about 50-50 at this point, but negatives and positives. And so was he a good person or not? Weighing someone in the balance? I don't know. I honestly couldn't say. And it really makes me sad. Because, like, how can it happen that someone this bigoted and this short-sighted with a baseball baptism program and stuff can lead the church? I'm just asking this question. How is that possible? Honestly, he's clearly willing to work and he's willing to serve. But that's not even the most important thing. The question is, how do you serve? Anyways, I'm sorry. I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but like looking at his life and saying, how can you support the baseball baptism program? And he said that you can teach everything that a person needs to know to be baptized in this church in less than 3 minutes. Do you honestly think that's true? I served a mission. And you teach all of the lessons. It takes about 4 or 5 hours. And that's just total of teaching time. And you let them come to think about it and mull over things. And if you're not talking teaching time, but like amount of time you would spend, I would say minimum would be about 6 weeks. I'm just saying, like, amount of time spent teaching them and following their progress and helping them to get to a point where they're ready. It takes about 6 weeks because they have to show that they're willing to come to church more than once. They have to show that they are progressing by reading their scriptures more than once, by coming with questions, by asking intelligent questions, things like that. If they're not willing to do that, then they're not ready to be baptized. Anyways, once again, that's a tangent, but I don't understand how anyone can support something like the baseball baptism program or the barring of black people holding the priesthood. I don't understand how anyone can get behind that. Now, I will give some people a little bit of a pass because of their culture, but he actively prevented it. And that really makes me sad. Like, you can't see people of a different color than you as real people, then you don't belong leading anyone, especially not inside of a church. I'm just saying. All right. I'm done ranting. I'm really disappointed in Alvin R. Dyer, and I'm going to be honest, even though this was very sketchy information about him, I don't want to know more about him. I think I'm done learning about this person. So, anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video. May it be better than this one.